All right, Albie. What a day. This has been a long one, man. It seems like eons ago that you and I were at our house instead of being here in Connecticut. But it's nice to be here. It actually was the best drive down ever, ever. And it really went fast. It was fun. We listened to a podcast on the way down. And isn't it just appropriate that on this day that Donald Trump was booked in Manhattan that my hair has never looked so more Trumpy.
Really? Does it look Trumpy to you? I don't
Oh,
know.
can you see?
I don't. That's not what my takeaway from today is, but
Okay, go ahead, Alice. Like
no, I mean,
if
I
I'm
don't
bored,
know.
I'm alone.
That's not what I said, but I'm trying to get this thing to work properly and it's making me crazy and whatever. Okay, fine. I won't worry about if the show works or not.
Okay,
Um,
well, okay. This is not how this works. I can't think. I can't not know if you're going to be here. If you're just, you give me the thumbs up when I can start talking to you. Until then, I'm just going to start talking.
you are talking to me. I'm talking to you. I mean, like, I don't know what you want to do, but that's
Nothing.
fine.
I'm just trying to have a conversation, and I'm told that you're not here, or then you are here, and then are here. So is everything working?
Yeah, but I'm trying to hide the meeting controls that are popped up and I don't know how to make it go. Um, but that's fine. I mean, it is what it is. I this has been a disaster. I disagree with the decision not to have done this before we left the house today. I think it would have been a lot easier to just get here an hour later rather than spend 3 hours trying to set up a stupid live stream. I mean, I think.
It would have gotten. We would have gotten here. The cinch of rush hour would have killed us by then. Okay. So here we go. As everybody knows, Trump was arrested today in Manhattan, and I don't even know if there was anything to it. He didn't say anything to the media. He got his marching orders, his talking orders from the judge, and this absolute just sham of a expired statute of limitations charge has happened, and he's like, uh, there's nothing to this. Is just BS. I don't think this is going to go very far whatsoever. I think they're going to probably toss it. It's nice of all you guys to want to be in here with me now. Thank you. Nice to see you.
So I think that is the biggest takeaway from today actually is that everyone including even like the most partisan blue anon Trump hating people really are um you know concerned about the strength of this case, I would say. I don't think that it's a very strong case. I think everybody knew it wasn't going to be a strong case because it had previously been the feds declined to prosecute it. The previous person who was here before, Alvin Bragg, declined to prosecute it because it is a very weak case. And I actually think, like, almost ironically, one of the best explanations of what is so weak about this case came from Ian Millhiser at Vox, not Fox, sorry, at Vox, who obviously would very much like to indict Trump, and so would the rest of the Vox team. Um, but he has a whole piece entitled The Dubious Legal Theory at the Heart of the Trump Indictment Explained. No one knows if Donald Trump can be prosecuted for the hush money payment to Stormy Daniels.
That is remarkable. And actually, if you had heard, and by the way, you have gone from barely being there to brilliant analysis as usual.
Well, I don't know. It's not your hair. I mean,
Alice,
it's not the compelling content that our listeners tune in for to hear
uh,
you compare your haircut to Trump's, but
it's called yeah, conversation. It's what people do. They have fun with little things.
I don't necessarily have that. But
No, you don't have that. So you even heard Cy Vance this weekend talking about talking about this case, and he even sounds tepid. He's like, well, it is a new look, certainly. Alice. I sometimes think that maybe, perhaps, possibly, that your sons aren't incredibly smart. You
it's possible they're related to you.
What the hell is that supposed to mean? That would mean that there's something genetic that would be causing that. I don't know what that means. But we do love the big Y here in Connecticut. By the way, we'll be in Cromwell
Mhm.
tomorrow at Awaken on Anyway Loss. Tomorrow, we may or may not have a show tomorrow. We'll have to see. If we do
If
it,
it is, we'll have to record it in the morning.
yeah, probably in the morning. Well, like 3 hours from now, I'll just do the next one. My hair looks like Donald Trump's hair. I stand by that. I'll
Okay.
share that tomorrow at the.
You know what? I think you should do your whole radio show on that tomorrow. I
You're
know
in that
that's
show, my
what the
friend.
listeners. That's what the listeners tune in for,
You are
is to
in.
hear stunning legal analysis like my hair looks like Trump's.
You are in my number 2 chair tomorrow.
I'll pop in.
You're not popping in. You're coming in from start to finish. And okay. Well, when I get
But I do want to read you a little of this Ian Melheiser thing because I
okay, go
think
ahead.
it's really interesting. But listen to this. It goes, there is something painfully anticlimactic about Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg's indictment of former President Trump. It concerns not Trump's efforts to overthrow the duly elected government of the United States, because obviously we would indict him for that, but his alleged effort to cover up a possible extramarital affair with a porn star. And there's a very real risk this indictment will end in an even bigger anticlimax. It is unclear that the felony statute that Trump is accused of violating actually applies to him. So he's charged with 34 counts of falsifying business records, all of which are really about the same thing. They're about the payments that were made from his company to Michael Cohen, in theory, because Michael Cohen paid $130,000 to
Stormy.
whoever, Stormy Daniels. And then, so Cohen had pled guilty to the federal campaign finance violation of paying them off. But basically, the charge that Trump is charged under, because falsifying business records is just a misdemeanor in New York,
Yep.
the felony charge that he's charged under is, you can charge somebody with felony falsification of business records if they falsify the business records to cover up another crime. But
Okay.
it's not clear that that can be a federal crime. The statute doesn't say. It just says to cover up another crime. So nobody's ever tried to do it for something other than a New York crime. So there's no legal precedent on that. And in addition to the fact that there's no legal precedent saying that um that the he's trying to cover up Michael Cohen's campaign finance crime, federal campaign finance crime, that's going to count for that. Um, and in addition, even if the New York judge rules that he can be charged under that and it goes to trial, then the Supreme Court could also weigh in, because there's something called the rule of lenity, that if a state law is like vague and not clear whether or not it applies to a situation, that the Supreme Court can weigh in and rule that it has to be interpreted in a really narrow way, because if the law is unclear, then people aren't given fair warning that they're violating the law when they do it.
Hmm.
So the Supreme Court could weigh in. And I mean, like, it's not necessarily a conservative thing. Like, Sotomayor and Gorsuch have both, because it tends to be a pro defendant kind of and anti prosecutor kind of stance. So it's more like the civil liberties people and sometimes liberals who want to interpret it this way, that you have to interpret statutes pretty narrowly if it's not clear that they apply to a situation or not, that like people have to know whether or not something they're doing violates the law. You can't write laws in such a vague way that it would be a surprise if it counts to a situation. So that could potentially happen, but there's a few ways that the Supreme Court could even weigh in on this. um so basically, like, and this again, this is coming from Vox. This is coming from people who would like to see Trump prosecuted. Um, but basically, they're going to have a problem because the only thing they can find is the federal crime. They also have a problem on the statute of limitations if the felony thing doesn't apply, because misdemeanor falsification of business records only applies for 2 years. and we're past 2 years now because this was back in 2016.
No.
The felony falsification of business records that they could do if they could get the law to apply that he was doing it to cover up another crime, if they could figure out to make it count for that, then they could do that. That has a statute of limitations of 5 years. So, even that, there's still more than 5 years ago because the last payment was in December of 2017 that
Right.
they made to Michael Cohen. So they're past that. So the thing they're relying on now is that they're going to say that they stopped the clock while the defendant was out of state because Trump spent 4 years living in the White House.
Right. But the thing is like he's still out of state.
Well, yeah, but then you could prosecute starting now, right? Like they they want as much time as possible of clock stopped, right?
Right.
So all they need is the 4 years that he was in the White House, and they're still within the statute of limitations. But like, it's not clear that that would necessarily count either. Like, is being elected the president count as like moving out of state for the purposes of the statute of limitations stopping? Like, it's not clear that that's necessarily the case. So, they could, run into that. They're gonna have problems, and it could go to this could take a really long time to work itself out, basically, is the long story short. So I think they're looking at December to even, like, Trump's people have time to file various motions and stuff, and I think they're gonna look at it again starting in December is when the judge will decide, like, whether or not it can actually go forward. That's what I was reading, but that's a pretty tough thing. The other problem for them is that, like, it has to be covering up a crime, right? And it's not clear that campaign finance law makes campaign finance law like a crime per se, a federal crime. It's a little bit tricky. Um, like Bill Barr has been a critic of the legal theory that campaign finance violations are a crime, that, like, to cover up the crime would make this a felony under New York law. It's a pretty tough thing overall. So, I mean, like, this case has a lot of legal problems, things that have, like, no precedent, are undecided. And this is why people have a problem with it, right? Because nobody's, I don't think, thinks that former presidents should just be above the law. Like, I don't think a former president, if they murder somebody, should, like, not go on trial for murder,
Of
right?
course.
Like, there's no uh, it- former presidents aren't, quote, above the law, but I just think that most people think that a case that's this legally gray is a bad look. A case that's this untested, that's a legal theory, that's never been proven. This is a really tough indictment. And, there were all these people saying, like, oh, it's so dangerous for, like, Ron DeSantis and all these other Republicans to go out on a limb and defend Trump because they haven't even seen the indictment yet. And what if what's in the indictment is really bad? And, they end up having to defend this really bad behavior of Trump's. Like, not to say this couldn't happen in the Georgia case or somewhere else, but there's this case is, like, weaker than anybody thought it was going to be, I think.
That
It's
absolutely.
even liberals. So this is not a scenario where, you want to be banking on Trump getting in big trouble for this. I think this is, like, a really tough one for liberals. I mean, you can see it by the first sentence of the Vox thing.
Well, and also, I yeah, I completely agree. I completely agree that, and it's also just exposing them as being just way too bloodthirsty and irrational, and it looks terrible. And the administration just does not have any good information.
Does the White House
Right.
believe that a former president could or should be indicted?
I'm just not going to comment from here.
Does the White House believe?
You get that. She also talked about gas prices. Here's another Karine Jean-Pierre cut.
About the indictment, the president was not given a heads up. He was briefed by his chief of staff, and he learned about this just like all of you.
obviously that is not true, but
Right.
but that's fine. That's where we are now. But this this is, as far as I'm concerned, I'm almost for this, because as far as I'm concerned, then it would be the responsibility for every sorry, it would be the responsibility. It's just got an email from every Republican DA to do the same thing.
Hmm.
If this is a non-serious attempt to sideline Trump because you don't like him, you don't want to see him be president, well then, all right, what's good for the goose, and this is how we play this now. There could be no other way, right?
Right. Yeah. And I think, I've heard some people say that they think that this, will help like make it okay for other cases against Trump to move forward, like the Georgia one. That's probably a bit of a stronger case, although I think still kind of a stretch that he made a phone call and said find 11,000 votes. Like
Right. Well,
I just,
that's this.
kind of don't think that that's like that compelling a case, but you can find a spot where a jury will convict Trump for that probably. But I, there are some people who believe that it's like good to start indicting Trump because if like you start open the floodgates that you'll like be able to get him on something. I actually think that this in some ways makes it harder because this undermines the credibility. Going after Trump with this weak of a case undermines the credibility of all the cases against Trump, in my opinion. Like it just makes it look so nakedly political
Yes.
that I think that if you do have something really compelling on Trump somewhere else, that no one's ever going to believe it because it's like a cried wolf thing, right? Like you're sitting around telling us that Trump is so terrible because he did XYZ, and like you're coming out with cases like this against him that even really like the staunchest Trump opponents feel are just legally a very weak case that, and they still have to prove. I mean, like, even if you say, like, all these legal theories hold up and they can actually prosecute this and this is going to work this way, they still have to prove to a jury beyond a reasonable doubt that Trump knew this, which, like, maybe isn't that difficult in New York. I don't know. But this is not the case that they wanted to be making against Trump right now.
No.
And the more they do this, the worse it looks. And I think the harder that it gets to actually prosecute Trump for something different if that's what they want to do. But this is just purely a political thing. They want to keep the focus on Trump. They want to keep Trump in the news. They want to keep talking about Trump and all the mean, terrible things he did, and Stormy Daniels and all the stuff, and Karen McDougal and hush money payments and sleeping with people and et cetera, et cetera. This is what they want to be talking about instead of Joe Biden and his policies and inflation and Afghanistan and Ukraine and gas prices and like that's not what they want to be talking about. They want to be talking about Trump and his affairs, right? So they're going to keep the focus on this. The unfairness and just ridiculous political ambitions of this project are going to rally people around Trump. We've already seen that start to happen. We've already seen his standings in the polls jump because of this. When he was, after November, persona non grata in the Republican Party, essentially, after the November showing in those elections. And they're doing this for that reason. They would like to run against Trump just like they wanted to run against him in 2016, and they are going to elevate him and keep him in the news and play him saying stuff as much as humanly possible all the way up until November of next year. So this is what we're going to see happen. And, unfortunately, it could work. It could work to get him the nomination, certainly.
Right.
It also could work the way it did in 2016, where it gets him right back in the White House. So,
Right.
like the, the, uh, the political mind games that they like to play just are nonstop. But they saw this strategy, this exact strategy, work very successfully for them in 2022, where they spent money promoting Trump candidates. the Democrats spent huge amounts of money in Republican primaries in 2022. And they did that so that they could run against Trumpier people, so that they could say Trump, Trump, Trump the whole time. And in a lot of cases, that helped them win races that they might not have won otherwise. So, they promoted these candidates. They promoted Bolduc in New Hampshire. They promoted all these people. They saw that strategy work for them in 2022, and they're going to keep doing it. They're going to prosecute Trump if they see that that is working for them politically. They're going to prosecute him right back into the White House. But we'll see what happens. It could go either way. I mean, I don't think Biden is a particularly strong candidate either. I'd obviously prefer for Ron DeSantis to be the Republican nominee, but I'll vote for Trump if it comes down to it, I think, barring something really
Right.
crazy happening. But, I guess we'll just have to
What
see
about
what
this?
happens.
This is the positive about Biden.
Okay.
No, about Trump. Tell me what you think of this.
Okay.
Trump won in 2016.
Mhm.
2018, the Republicans lost, but he wasn't on the ticket. 2020, he lost, but he got 71 million votes, more than anybody else had gotten other than Biden that year.
Right.
2022, last fall, Republicans didn't do well, but he wasn't on the ballot.
But a lot of his candidates were.
Well, yeah, true, but that's not him. That's not
That's
the
true.
guy. Just because you wear a MAGA hat doesn't mean that you care a damn about Dr. Oz. In fact, probably not. In a lot of ways, the MAGA almost review tribunal is separate of Trump. So some of the Trump picks they don't accept.
That's true, but Oz probably wouldn't have been your nominee in Pennsylvania at all without that Trump endorsement, which
Right.
came with the Hannity endorsement and the Rick Grinnell endorsement and the attacks on Kathy Barnett and all the other stuff that went along with that, right?
Yep. Kind of forgot about
So,
it.
all those factors came into play, and Democrats elevated those candidates too. They
Oh, yeah.
pushed the Trump candidates. So, I think there's something to be said here for the push is on to get Trump nominated and who's behind it. And maybe if it's the Joe Biden campaign, maybe we shouldn't be that thrilled that they're doing this.
Right.
I mean, but we saw it happen in 2016. I mean, the Hillary Clinton campaign was high-fiving all the way up to November because they thought the fact that they managed to get Trump nominated was fantastic for them, and they thought that race was a shoo-in. But ultimately, I think in 2016, they were caught sleeping and they didn't let that happen again. And I don't know that they will again, It's one of those things where, like a Scott Brown thing where they didn't see it coming. And so they didn't know they had to stuff as many ballot boxes as they had to, and then, then the next time they made sure, right?
Let's
And
go back to
I
Green
think
jumping in.
that they will again. What?
Green.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you so much. Are there any circumstances, stepping back from New York, are there any circumstances under which President Biden would consider a pardon for former President Trump similar to Ford's pardon of Nixon? And has that been discussed with any advisors? Is it completely off the table?
I'm not going to get into hypotheticals. I'm not going to get into any of that. All I can tell you is that we do not comment from here on any ongoing cases. Anything that's related to any of those cases, I refer you either to the DA as it relates to what's happening today or the Department of Justice. We're just not going to comment from here.
But it's President Biden's decision. Has it been discussed?
I hear you and I understand the question. I really do. I'm just not going to comment from here.
That's probably wise. It's probably wise that they keep the commenting at a minimum.
Does the White House believe that a former president should be indicted?
She said she's not going to comment from there. Essentially, that's just a whole bunch of not going to comment. Stuff.
One thing I do think is interesting too is the hysteria and the sort of solemn grandstanding about now is the time when a former president has actually been indicted. This is a dark day for our country. It's
Oh,
just
it's
sort of
so
funny to
gross.
me, too, because it's like they're doing this. Like, it's
Right.
all the same cheerleading squad who's been, like, so excited for this to happen and demanding that this happen.
Yes.
And then, like, for them
Hold on.
to
Let
act
me,
like,
let me play some of these. This is incredible. This is from the good folks at Grabian. They also talked to Adam Schiff earlier today. I don't think I'm going to be able to stomach it.
This is no time for celebration. I think it's sad.
I have fought Trump for a long time, but I'm sad that this has happened.
How are you feeling about a historic day? It's sad.
And this is a day of profound sadness that an ex-president is indicted, but it's also a time to celebrate.
Because it's a sad moment to see a former president have to do this, even though we feel it could lead to justice.
If you don't see this as a sad day for America.
Sad day for America.
It's a sad day.
Well, I don't think anybody can consider it a good day.
Regardless of anything, it's just really sad.
It's a sadness, I think, that we got to this point.
I just want to remain measured.
The left, full of somber support.
I think really this should be a somber moment. It is a serious, somber, solemn moment.
It's obviously a somber moment, and it's a sad moment.
Well, it's really a sad day when we get to this point.
Incredibly sad day for our country. It is a serious night and a somber moment for our country.
That this is a really sad moment and a perilous moment.
I mean, I think it is a sad.
why
day.
is it perilous?
It's a perilous moment because the country's on the brink. Literally,
It's just funny. They've been screaming to indict Trump for like, how long has it been now? Since like 2015, probably for like 8 years. They've been crying to indict Trump for stuff. And then like they get a guy elected who's so partisan that he's willing to actually indict Trump on the flimsiest of charges. And then they're like, wow, sad day. A president has been indicted, as though they had nothing to do with it when they've been like whining that he needs to be indicted for years and years and years.
oh, and
It's
Bragg
so,
is so
wow, he's been indicted. This proves what I
Bragg
thought
himself-
all along. He should have been indicted. Like, what? It's such a weird circular thing.
As this office has done time and time again, we today uphold our solemn responsibility to ensure that everyone stands equal before the law.
Okay, and this is a guy who is not prosecuting anybody for any other crimes in New York, so much so that Eric Adams had to beg him to start doing
Right.
it. This is just such a it's ridiculous. And what you've done is, if just go by you and I, Alice, is they have re-energized support for Trump, and I think that with you and I,
I mean, I'm still not going to vote for him in a
we're on
primary.
to DeSantis.
I don't think.
We were on to DeSantis.
Mhm.
And, I still like DeSantis the way he carries himself better. James, show yourself so he doesn't run out into the hall, okay? We're playing extreme hide and seek here right now. So you may see. The good thing is that he'll run right. What? Someone knocked on the door? That's because you guys are yelling. Great. Guys, no more yelling. Great. So the people in the other rooms are knocking on the door. We might have to cut this a little short, Alice. We're dealing with crowd control here. But let's go. Sometimes it just doesn't work. Like Mike Geary said at one point, you don't have to do it, Tom. You don't have to do it every night. So let me ask you a question before we go.
I also said that in addition to saying that we could do the show before we left so we wouldn't have to bring all the equipment and try and get things to work when it's always super difficult in a hotel room.
Okay.
I also said we could take a couple nights off the podcast while you're traveling for work.
But at the same time, you also don't want to go down to 3 days. So
Well, no, but I think that we could
thank you, by the way, for
potentially.
supporting me fully, Alice, and not throwing me under the bus to the listeners.
I don't think we should regularly go down to 3 days, but I do think that we should take days off if it's like really going to be a heavy lift to do the show due to travel or other exigencies.
exigencies.
Mhm.
I have some exigencies. As a matter of fact, I look forward to it.
Okay.
All right. Do you care to address the controversy?
No, I don't care.
You don't care.
No,
I
I
don't remember
stand
you
by
saying it.
everything I always say, Tom. You know
I
that.
don't remember you saying it. But how would you defend that? Because Dylan Roof and Dylan Mulvaney are two vastly different people. One is a psychotic who murdered people, and one is a psychotic who prances around pretending he's a 6-year-old girl.
Yeah, I find that behavior pretty questionable, actually. I think adult men who dress up as sexualized children probably should, you know, I think I find them problematic. I mean, I have a lot that I could say on that, but I'm happy to always explain it to anybody who wants to ask me about it. So,
Okay, so do you want to wait until somebody asks you about it, or because I think it's interesting? I would like to know your thinking behind it, and I also don't. I'm worried that somehow I missed this twice.
what do you mean missed it twice?
I don't remember you ever saying.
No, I mixed up the names one time, but then on the show recently, I just made that joke about me having mixed up the names, and I mean, it's a throwaway line, but I don't like Dylan Mulvaney, and I think that he's a person who's dangerous and bad and is a walking human red flag for a variety of reasons.
He's not going to. Okay. I get you. Anything else going on? I felt like we had something else to talk about.
Well, there was the Jill Biden thing too.
Oh yes, Jill Biden.
Jill Biden's perfect track record of always doing and saying the completely wrong thing. She, there was a team in the women's basketball final. There was a team that was more black and a team that was more white, and the team that was more black won. So she wanted to invite then both teams, which a lot of people called kind of an all lives matter kind of move. She wanted to invite both the teams to the White House when traditionally she would just have invited the winning team. So that was roundly attacked on social media and called racist by a number of people. So then she backed down.
Right, and they had to walk it back today and say, nope, that didn't happen. It's fine.
It is funny because it's sort of ironic to me. Do you remember the story? You did it on the Michael Graham show years and years ago about there was a team, and this was high school basketball, but there was a team that got totally blown out by another team.
Yeah.
Like they were supposed to mercy rule and like stop counting the scores, but they didn't, and they won like 110-2 or something crazy.
Yeah.
And then like the losing team got like sent to all these NBA games and like taken care of and flown all these places, and everybody was like, and at the time conservatives were like, why are we celebrating the losing team? And it's funny because now it's like
coach Alice got fired.
probably that sounds vaguely right. Like, and at the time, the liberal position was to celebrate the losing team, but now because of the racial makeup of the teams involved, that that liberal value of the everyone gets a trophy and we need to celebrate the losing and the winning teams has gone out the window. But it almost to me it like speaks to how the Bidens are like from a slightly different political era. They're like from the political era of 10 years ago, and Jill Biden like hasn't noticed yet that like you can't celebrate the losing team without regard to the races of the people involved because that could make it problematic, And Hannah gone the other way potentially, and she'd said she had wanted to invite both teams. Like I don't think there would have been the same problem, or I think it would have been framed differently. I think it would have been possibly like that old basketball story from 10 years ago where the complaint would have been coming from people who believe in like a more meritocratic system, who would have been saying like we shouldn't be celebrating a losing team, we should be only celebrating the winning team, whereas in this case it was the anti-racist groups coming after Jill Biden for saying she wanted to invite the losing team. It's just an odd thing to me how this sort of like racializing of everything has changed certain topics for
and
for the
also
left.
like the girl who like was taunting the other girl, Angela, whatever. You know,
Angel Reese, yeah.
Angel Reese. It just goes to show you that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much you show your fealty to wokeness. It's never enough, and they'll always devour you if you ever, foul out.
Oh yeah, they're looking for a reason.
Yeah, you don't gain exemption because you've been saying the mantras.
Oh no, definitely not. If anything, it's worse for you if you've been saying the mantras because you've been asked to do the work. So you need to make absolutely sure that you keep up with everything that you're being asked to do. You can't quit once you've started your ally journey. You have to then continue to do everything they say. You can never disagree, you can never have a doubt, you can never back down. You have to absolutely continue to do everything. Like once you bend the knee and they know they have you. What was it? If it bleeds, we can kill it.
Yeah, the great Predator movie. All
Yeah,
right.
so just don't bleed in front of them.
What is the hot sauce house?
It is the Chelsea Fire Wicked Hot Sauce. Can find it at Big Y where you were today, as a matter of fact, as well as Market Baskets, as well as ChelseaFireHotSauce.com.
Let me tell you something, Alice. I wanted to talk to you about this.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting thing. I went to the Packy for You today in Connecticut.
No.
And it's very interesting. Listen to this. The polar seltzers that I bought there were 89 cents.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty rare in a Packy to have stuff like almost at grocery store prices. Now,
yeah, that is reasonable.
Now, it's right there. They're right there. It's on the fridge.
Does Connecticut have a bottle deposit?
So listen to
Yeah.
this, Alice. Listen to this.
Mm-hmm.
Inside the Big Y, the Chelsea Fire Wicked hot sauce was almost $5.
Is that different than Massachusetts?
Well, yes, it's like around $2 in Massachusetts.
Oh, I didn't know.
Isn't that interesting? That somehow they keep the seltzer prices way down at a Packy, where usually the seltzer prices are jacked up, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But the Chelsea Fire Wicked. So if you are in Connecticut, can you help him? Help him. Yeah, Alice, we're gonna have to find a different. We're gonna be absolutely booted from this hotel unless we find a better way. Hey, James, can you pour him a glass of this, please? Thanks. I'm just making my 5-year-old a vodka drink. Figure it's about time. Chelsea Fire Wicked hot sauce, the hot sauce of the Burn Barrel podcast. Got some. We do like the Big Y though. All sorts of great food, pizza, jalapeno poppers, chicken. They were cool, very very cool. And I'm very pleased. You know what's interesting? You know, next to it, and that's the Simsbury Big Y. But you know, we take that little secret left, which is not a secret, before the plaza there into the by the closed restaurant. Well, there's all sorts of cars parked at that closed restaurant. So I'm thinking either something's happening there, might be interesting, like a rave, so I can be cool and do what is it? What is the stuff
Molly?
No, before that.
Ecstasy?
Ecstasy, that's right. Or that they're gonna put something there. So I'm very intrigued. Very intrigued. Thank you, James. All right, shall we?
Good. I hope it's a rave for you, honey.
Thank you.
Go to the rave.
I feel like we're forgetting something. We're forgetting something. Well, you're not going to go down to Plymouth for the KMS show, right? Because you're going to be 55 weeks pregnant then.
No, I'm going to be too pregnant for that. Did you want to talk about the UConn students?
Oh yeah, the UConn students.
I think you covered that today a lot, though. No.
Talked about it for 7 hours this morning, but UConn students, because the team won the March Madness thing, the students decided it was a good time to riot and light fires and go nuts on campus. So they did, and they caused damage, and it was terrible. And then I had people saying, "You sound like an old curmudgeon. Come on, it's kind of a tradition at UConn. You sound like an old man yelling at the clouds." Like, so wait a second. We call the people in the inner city for Black Lives Matter lighting fires, we call them thugs, but we can't call these kids thugs. And also, it's like the behavior was terrible. These kids should have been knocked in the head with billy clubs and should have been thrown in the paddy wagon and spent days, if not weeks, in jail. I'm sick of it. I hate this double standard. Oh, come on. It's changing. Come on.
Yeah, we're trying to have a civilization here. Just
So
watch
what
the
you get for
basketball game.
being for 18 years being totally treated like a little princess or prince is you get 4 more years of a diplomatic immunity and being able to be treated, with impunity. F that, dude. F that. I am for the riot squad, police cracking heads. Oh, I'm just disgusted by it all. But that's that, Alice. Let's start with the chat, shall we?
Let's go.
Steve from Merrimack. I just wanted to apologize for that final message from yesterday, which was rather harsh.
Really?
But I was a little frustrated with the Rumble app because I've tried on at least 4 occasions to be able to chat on the app, and I've signed up and been verified 5 times, and every time I try to go into the chat, it still tries to verify me again. So I'm done with that. So you can understand my frustration, because
I do understand your frustration.
Well, let me tell you,
And Rumble actually might not be working tonight too. It seems to be struggling a little tonight. So I'm
yeah, we're also not struggling tonight, so that's okay. This is
I'm not honestly sure if it's us or the hotel internet or Rumble right now.
But
So it's a little hard to
but
tell.
Steve is a high-ranking VIP, so we must indeed take his words with the heaviest of import.
Chat was, if you're going to the grocery store, let's just say it's called The Basket in Haverhill, that I think you're going to, my daughter works there.
Oh.
And I'm going to give her your picture, and I'm going to make sure she rats your ass out. Okay? I'm going to love it. I'm going to wait to read your name in the Newburyport Daily News Police Blotter. It's going to be fantastic. Anyway, have a good night.
Imagine that. How embarrassing. Well, I wonder if she doesn't work at the one that's in the hood. I doubt it. But she might work at the one near Groveland, and that is one that I've scurried away from since I was up there with no funds in my account and had to leave. But those are all good employees, that one. And then of course, there's the deluxe Cadillac model, which is on River Street, I think. That one's living. I mean, talk about a hot bar.
I like the bigger Seabrook one. That's my favorite, though it takes longer to get to.
That other Haverhill one is really good too. But yeah, how about the Podunk Seabrook one that's for some reason
Yeah, that one's scary. I've gone to that one by accident before, but I like the big Seabrook one. I like that one.
That one's pretty rock and roll. There's a few of those.
Yeah, that's my favorite one near to us. Of course, I used to.
Okay.
I used to go to the Chelsea one, was what I was gonna say. When we lived in Melrose, that was my weekly shopping trip. Was there because that one is,
that's rock and
Mecca.
roll. But you gotta do like 8 ball of Coke and.
Yeah, you can't.
Work yourself
You
into
can't
that
have somewhere to be at like a specific time after that because you could be in checkout for like 45 minutes. That one's tough, but the ethnic food aisles are the best at that store. That's the best one.
Hey guys.
Hey.
Found it fascinating that Alice was voted most likely to succeed. How's that feel, Tom? You dragged her right down into mediocrity with you. On another note, Tom, stop stealing shit. You're 50.
I know.
The rest of us don't want to subsidize your anchovy addictions. All right, get a basket. Good one, guys.
All good points. All good points.
To the charges conveyed, I would say this. One, that is true. Alice married badly. I did drag her down. She should not be living this existence. I completely agree. It is not even like the top 15, portions of conversation that we have occasional rats in the house. This isn't anymore. It's other stuff. It rains in her kitchen. Yes, Alice has made a terrible choice. I know. I believe me. I'm like with her family on this, and we want a what's that called when you for AA thing when you bring all my friends over to tell me that
an intervention.
I've been on her family's side of an intervention to try to get her to choose better, to leave and to find happiness somewhere, and she won't even She won't do it. So I don't know. She likes this. She is a martyr. She is a martyr. She's chosen this as her destiny. I don't know why. Maybe I don't know. Maybe because it's the last name it has more interesting letters than your maiden name, which is interesting too. I don't know. Maybe it was most likely to succeed in marrying badly. Maybe that was what that meant.
Steve from Merrimack. You also had a question.
Steve, by the way, so Alice, how do I play this when I go into Market Basket? One, I have to look for a male cashier, right?
Oh, so you don't get rung up by Steve from Merrimack's daughter?
Exactly, because if she
Okay.
or do I just ask the young lady cashiers if their dad is named Steve?
If you go during school hours, at least during the school year, you might be able to safely avoid it.
Yeah, but does Merrimack even have a school system? Let's be honest here.
They're in our school system.
Oh, maybe we
The
should.
big high school that we just paid for right down the street from us. That huge high school, the one a half a mile away.
Regarding the sound quality of the messages that I've left.
Yes.
There's a reason for that. One is like the first couple messages from yesterday. You know, I don't know about Tom, but you know, I actually leave my house in the morning to go to work.
Oh,
no, Tom doesn't do that.
But so those are my Bluetooth in my car. And
I see.
Awful message I left at the end was at my desk in my home. So that explains it. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. I like more looks into Steve's life. that he took to his office, slammed the door, and created a nasty tirade. Just so I hope there was a Jack Daniel's uncorked bottle, cork flung behind him as he revved himself up for it. But it was a good message, Steve. They're all good messages, and we're all for it.
Thank you so much for leaving all the messages, everybody, and thank you for joining us maybe on the live stream. I can't really tell if it worked. It's a little tricky today in the hotel, but if you want to join us for non-working live streams, you can do that at patreon.com/burnbarrel, and of course, you can always have our dysfunctional show for free at burnbarrelpodcast.com and all the places you like to listen to podcasts.
C'est la vie.
Not too far off considering I can't hear the music.